What's going on, guys? Hitpause here, and welcome to part 1 of this tutorial on how to rig and animate and import a character into UE4, a custom character. As you can see here, there's nothing humanoid about this thing. It is a kind of a parasite slash insect type thing, a little bit of a squid and lobster going on in there. So what we're going to do in this part is we're going to create the skeleton, and we're going to use a couple of tricks to do it. And just as a note, we are going to be using cat rigs here, which you can find under helpers, cat objects, okay? And when you go to cat parent, you do end up with all of these different presets. For instance, a horse, okay? There's a horse. Here's an English dragon, right? I don't know why they said they have an English dragon and then don't say they have a Chinese dragon, but anyways. We have a lizard. We have a new. Okay, I thought new was G-N-E-W. We also have a base human, okay? And many things here. An angel has got some wings and things like that. But what we're actually going to use is spider. Okay, so here is a spider preset, and before we start, what we're going to do is we're going to prep the model just a little bit. Okay, now let's actually right click so we get out of creation mode, and you'll notice first off that I am at 000, and what I'm actually going to do is just duplicate this thing as a copy just in case right now, because what I want to do is I want to give myself some volume snaps, and in order to do that, basically what I mean by that, I'm going to get rid of this skin modifier here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to take a couple of these pieces where I want the bone to actually be perfectly centered. I'm going to grab the loop and I'm going to create a shape. Okay, we're going to keep it linear. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here, and we'll create a shape from selection, which gives us basically takes the edge loops and turns them into a spline. Okay, and I'm going to want a bone about, I'm wondering if I want it back here or in the middle. I'm kind of thinking in the middle. Okay, so we'll create a shape from that. I also want, make sure you don't move anything. Let's hit Q so we're on the selection tool instead of the move tool. I'm going to create a shape from these guys. So I need one right here. Okay, I also want one here. Okay, and I want one here. Alright. I also want one here. 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 And I want one here, but it's not going to give me the whole loop because it was extruded. So we're also going to put one there. Okay, and you'll notice that I didn't bother going through the other side. I need one here. And I do want this one to be centered. Okay. So what I'm actually going to do is take these guys here in like an outline of two cubes right here. Okay, and we'll take that one. Alright, so if we now move this guy back, you can see that we have all of these points here, all of these different objects. And if I pick one of these, you can see they all have their pivot at the 000 point, and we want to use the pivots to do our snaps. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the hierarchy tab, effect pivot only, and we're going to center to object. And that's going to make each one have its pivot right down its center, and we'll now be able to snap to these points if we do a bone creation. Okay? Now this one right here is a little bit different because we couldn't get an edge loop around the whole thing. What we need to do is instead we still want to get the dead center of this, but what we're seeing here, if we look in like the top view, that pivot's not really in the center. The center would really be a little bit more forward. Now I could fudge it myself, and it's not a huge deal, but let's just assume that we do want to be accurate here. It is kind of good practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to convert it to an editable polygon. Okay? And the very first thing that I'm going to do is come to the freeform and freeform, optimize, and I'm going to connect there and there going across. Okay? And I'm going to now cut these guys off. I'm going to take these two and I'm going to bridge them. Then I'm going to take these two and I'm going to connect them. And then I'm going to take these three and I'm going to connect them. And that gives me a center point. So what I'm going to do now is affect the pivot. And I'm going to go hit S here and then right click on my snaps. And I want to snap to vertex. Okay, so if I grab this, I can now snap that to the vertex. Okay. So that was just a quick way to do that, and we can do the same thing if we want to with this guy. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit difficult because we need to actually come over here and connect. I believe we drag. No. Let's connect. There we go. We drag when we go like this. Okay, and then now we can convert it to an editable polygon, and then once again you hold shift and click a parallel line to get the ring, and we can connect that guy, and then we can just compare that to where the pivot is, and it's actually where it originally was anyway. Okay, now we could do that with all of these, but the rest of these actually ended up with their pivots correct for the most part. Okay, right down the middle. None of these splines are perfectly planar or anything like that, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. Okay, so we now have these snap points that we can use, and we've just moved the mesh out of the way. Okay, so we're going to create our cat rig. Again, we want to be on the preset of spider, and we're going to get him roughly the size that we want. In fact, let's put our, oops, let me undo that. Let's put our mesh back really quick, and then create it so we can get a little bit better size reference. So it's going to be roughly around there, and what we can do is if we hit A to snap to 5 degrees, we can bring out our rotation. So what we were trying to essentially match was the size of its body. Okay, so we do have that now, and what we can do is we can just select any of these hubs and basically move them to wherever we want. Okay, but what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up snapping them. Okay, so our creature, he's just over here for reference, only has 2 legs on each side and a pair of arms. Now a spider has 8 legs, okay, 4 on each side, but these rear legs we actually don't need, so we can just select the roots and hit delete. The way cat works is everything is kind of hubs. It's just a series of hubs. So this leg here, if we go to the modify tab, is actually leg 2. Okay, and it doesn't matter which one of the bones I pick, it says that the limb is leg 2. So these count as entire chains, and this is a limb that contains 3 bones. Okay, if we look up here, we can see that we have the individual bones. You can see I have 2, 3. Okay, it's not 23, it's 2, 3. 2, 2, 2, 1. Okay, so let's also, we have a head bone, and the spiders generally don't have heads. Their mouths and their mandibles and pedipalps and all that stuff are basically just kind of coming right off of their heads. So what we're going to do is delete that, and we'll come here and we can add another bone for his head, and you can do that really easily just by picking the hub and just say add bone. Now what that does is that gives us a bone that's, if we can find it right there, that's kind of at its center point. So we need to move it and then rotate it, and I'll just hit A here. So this is now where we can start using what we've saved. I won't worry about the rear stuff yet. We are going to use that. So let's just get the mesh out of here by moving him back. I mean, we could hide him too. It doesn't really make a difference. So we know that his head is supposed to be here. So what we can do is we can align it, okay? And we can go by pivot because we have set the pivots, right? And then if I hit E and then hold Shift, well, actually I don't want to do that. This is his head, so let's make sure that the rotation is 0, and then we have the ability to size it however we want. So we'll size it to about there, and we'll make it a little bit taller and wider, okay, like so. Actually, we'll size it down just a little bit. Alright, now this one we need the jaws, right, because we have a head but we also have the upper and lower jaw. So we'll do that now. We'll add a bone, and now we can align that to this guy, and let's make it a little bit more obvious that it's our jaw, and we'll make it a little bit longer here. And let's just, I don't know exactly what rotation, so I'll just go up 40 degrees, and if we hold Shift we can duplicate it, okay? So there's the mouth here. Okay, so this leg needs to be aligned to here, okay, and this one to here, okay. Also, actually, before we go any further here, we need to change these legs to be 2 bones. Alright, and what we can do is we can copy this and we can select this leg, and if we're on the middle mirror, okay, down the middle, we can paste mirror, and we see how we get 2 now. So copy is the first one, paste mirror is the next one, copy is the first one, paste mirror is the next one, okay. So now we have the correct number of bones. We can actually move these to wherever we want. Okay, and now if we take this guy, hopefully we can move it to here. It's not really going to allow us to do everything the way we want yet, but so we'll worry about that in a second. We'll just get this guy to be aligned at his start point, this guy at his start point, this guy at his start point. Okay. So we're essentially getting lined up, but we're not fully there yet, because you'll notice that I can't really move this guy the way I really want to. So these middle bones, which is kind of actually annoying, I'll be honest with you. I really wish that I could just move this where I want it to be and align it to the point that it needs to be. But what we really need to do is we need to actually affect its end point here and get this correct. So we're going to move our mesh back, and we're going to take this one, and we're going to go by snap, and we'll grab in here, and we're just going to snap to the vertex on the tip. I believe that one's correct. Okay, and we'll do the same thing here. So let me just get an angle that puts these things away from other geometry. Like if right here would be hard because it might be going to the background, so I just move it so that when I look behind it, it's gray. So we just grab in the yellow here and snap that there, and that should be about it. Okay, now remember I centered these guys right down this edge loop right here, this one that's green. And you can see, oh, I actually I did these a little backwards there, didn't I? Okay, so just separate them real quick and then I hit S. Okay. And again, we have a little bit of issues going on here, and we're not worried about the other side yet. So let's go ahead and move the mesh now, get it out of the way, and let's see what we can do to get this thing lined up. No, I had it right the first time, didn't I? Now they're crisscrossed. Damn it. Yeah, because that comes from the back. Sometimes if your undo stops working, just middle click and shake it and refresh the screen. Because now we can move this where we need it to be by moving this bone. Okay, we'll get it roughly close to where we want. Notice how it behaves here. It's not allowing for a difference in length. What we actually have to do is adjust the length here. Okay. So I think that length probably needs to come about right there. Okay, and let's go ahead and move this guy back. There we go, that looks correct. Again, we can mirror what we've done. So we need to get this one. Let's try to line that up. Okay, now if we go by local, I think we can tick the length into where we need it to be. Now we can't be 100% accurate here, but we can get pretty close as long as we move it, as long as we do align it, because it'll align it so it's kind of looking at it. For instance, this was aligned to look at that piece. Okay, we do that again. And now if we tick the length down, we can pretty much get right where we want to be. It's not going to be 100 and 100, you know, mathematically perfect, but it is kind of a problem with the system that doesn't allow us to fix these things as easy as, you know, we would like to. Now we're going to take this bone and we're going to shrink it down. We're going to make it a little bit thinner. We're going to make it a little bit less lengthy here, and probably a little bit less tall, which would be this guy here. Just to semi-match the shape. We're not super worried about it. And then again, all we got to do is come over here, copy this guy, come over here, paste mirrored. Okay, we get everything exactly the same. Copy, paste, copy, paste. We can also, if we want to, make these thinner. So we'll say 3 by 3. Okay, and we can do the same thing here. And again, we can copy and paste, and that stuff goes across too. Okay, so we'll do the same thing here. 3 by 3, 3 by 3. We grab the root or the hub, copy, paste, come here, do it. I will say 2 by 2 because we want that to be a little bit smaller, and 2 by 2. Alright, and once again, copy and paste. Again, remember to keep this on M, which is left, right, and middle. Okay. So now that our skeleton is getting there, it's not 100% yet. Let's go ahead and do the 2 fins and the this piece over here. So we grab this guy and we say add bone. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to shrink it down. Alright, and we'll align it. And then we'll dupe it by holding shift, We'll hit copy, and then we'll align that guy. And we're gonna need to kind of manually do the rotation here. So we're not gonna, you know, be able to do that really any other way. So let's move our dude back. That's local now, so we'll go back to view. We'll come here, boom. So this one looks like this guy, so we'll rotate that. We do want to be on local here. So roughly around there. It really only does matter where the pivot is, not so much where the rotation is, but there are things that you want to try to match, like for instance this direction here, we want to kind of match that. So that way when we do move this flap, it you know, if we go by local, it goes in the right direction. Before we did that, if we did local, it's going to go up and down, and we don't really want that. Let's undo. We'll put that back like so. Let's get this guy correct. Oops, missed the axis. Oh, I went to the wrong edge. Let's go to this edge here. Right there. Let's check the angle, could be better. So about there is fine. We can make this one a little bit shorter too. And then what we're going to do is take another copy of that guy. We'll just hit OK. We don't care about what it's named yet. We'll worry about the skeleton naming in a second. Let's hide selection. And we'll take this one and we'll align it to here. Okay, now we can unhide. And this bone, we're going to go probably 3 by 3, and then we'll just pull this back like so. And again, we could have added an IK joint effector thingy so that we could move it to the right spot, but we really don't want these to be IK. We actually just want them to be forward kinematic, FK. And again, it's not super imperative on these particular bones, but like I said, I do want to be able, when I do go to animate this, I do want it to be able to move in its correct axes, okay, like so. Flaps up and down. Same thing with this guy here. Let's just take a look. It looks okay, I think. If I move this up and down, it should flap quite well. And then what we can do is we can take this, and I believe, I'm not sure, if I take this guy and copy, I think I can paste mirrored. Yep, not a problem. So we'll copy that first, dupe it, hit OK, and paste mirrored. I want to make this guy just a little bit thinner, like so. Then we'll copy it, hold shift, drag it anywhere, hit OK, and then paste mirrored, and there we go. Okay. Now if we were to take this one and increase the length, we can't, okay? Because we are going to end up moving those other bones. But it's fine, we just needed it to be in the right position here, and which is what we've got. So we now have IK points at the tip, and we have pretty much everything just about set up for where we want it, I would say. So let's just move this guy out of the way really quick, and what we can do is if we grab this guy and we go control page down, we get everything. In fact, or let me see if I can hide this. Hide selection. No, just grab both of them, control page down, hide selection. Okay. And now what we can do is just delete that stuff. We don't really need it anymore. Unhide all. Okay. So we now have our skeleton, and we're going to call this parasite. And what that'll do is that'll name everything parasite hub, parasite left leg 2, 1, because remember this is left leg 1, 1. Okay, so I kind of probably want to go through, let's expand all here, and do a little bit of naming here. So left leg 1 is actually going to not be 1, 1, it's going to be 1A and 1B. Okay, so I'm just going to do that on all of these. I could use the rename tool, but there's going to be so many different names, it's probably not going to give us any kind of benefit. So it's a click, then a click, not a double click. I think we all know how to do that by now. Okay, this is going to be lower jaw. Wait, what? What happened there? What bone is that? Okay, that's not lower jaw. That's going to be parasite left. Left testicle. Those are his testicles. That'll be right testicle. Okay, that one's going to be left. Ah, damn it. Parasite left fin 1. Left fin 2. Right fin 2. Left fin 1. Damn it. Upper jaw. I need to take a look at what's apparent there. Lower jaw. So if I were to rotate this, okay, this guy needs to go there. Okay. This is parasite head. Okay. So 3A, 3B, they all start with parasite. Right? This is parasite, and this is going to be abdomen. And thorax. And this is going to be cat helper. Okay. This is actually going to be parasite SK mesh. We don't need that one anymore. Okay. So it looks like we're pretty named here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select children here. And so starting at the thorax, what we're going to do is we're going to go Tools, Rename Objects, and what we're going to do is we're going to give it a prefix of B underscore, and we're going to remove, we're not going to give it a base name, we're going to remove the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 digits. Rename. So now we are at B underscore thorax, abdomen, head. Okay, we don't need to name it parasite, but we'll keep the that cat helper and the SK mesh named correctly. All right. So there we go. There's our skeleton built. We can now skin it to our mesh and animate it. Let's just play a little bit. Okay, that's just poking in and out. That's not that big of a deal. Okay, I was like, what the hell is that extra piece? But no. Okay, so what we can do with cat, just to show you guys, is cat, the reason we're using it instead of just bones is because it gives us some really cool stuff here. For instance, motion layers, which is a procedurally generated walk cycle. It looks like shit, but it works. Okay. So if we were to edit this, the first thing we can do is decrease the stride length. Let me did I lose my IK stuff? It's IK. Okay, so I don't know why I lost my IK or at what point I did that. I really don't. So we're gonna create IK targets and just separate them really quick. Now the question is if I copy this guy, will that go by the middle? If I copy that, will that add an IK target to this guy? Yeah. Okay, so we're still good to copy and paste. That's very cool. Alright, and we need to put the mesh back so we can resnap that. That's all. So take that, we'll bring it around there, and then we'll hit S, and actually, sure, I'm on this guy. There we go. Then we snap that guy. Okay, so now we're back to having IK. I really don't know what happened. And also, let's get rid of that animation layer. So we take this, go back here, copy, come off of snap again, paste, that should put it back, copy, and paste. There we go. And it pasted to the right side, which is kind of the same thing. It's just make sure you're not on the left side, because we're looking at it this way, right? Remember the cat parent is treating this down this arrow as its forward direction, and we do want our facing down X. If you look here, X. You can also see my gizmos pointing X this way. Okay, forward. UE4 does use X forward for any kinds of characters and things, so we want to match that too. Alright, so now let's save as let's go, we'll keep it here. We'll call this parasite character, and we'll call this parasite rigging. Okay, and let's just double check that we can get an animation now. So we're going to add a motion layer, which again is the procedurally driven motion, and then when we hit play, okay, that's much better. Okay, he's kind of galloping like a horse right now, but when we come and adjust this stuff, we can, like I said, change like the max stride length, just say 50. Okay, we're only on an 80 frame time, and we have a step time of 25. 25 does not go into 80 cleanly. Okay, so we need to actually make it a multiple of 80. Alright, so you can see now that it does animate, and what we have is, let's say that we don't like it swinging back and forth. If we come to the hub group and we say weight shift, we can scale this down, and now he doesn't go back and forth so much. We can scale down his twist, okay, and we can scale down his roll. We're not removing it entirely, we're just scaling it down. Okay, and then we can say, okay, the lift, which is him bobbing up and down, maybe we think that that's about twice as much, so we go to about 50% here, and we let it go. So we tone it down quite a bit, right? And it can come in handy. The other thing you'll notice is that the front legs and the back legs are kind of in sync. If I slow the animation down, see how the front legs are both coming back at the same time? I'm going to hide this guy. And I'll just select these two so you know what I want you guys to be focusing on here. See how they're moving backwards and forwards at the same time like that? We need to offset their phase, and you can do that here, limb phases. So we have left leg 1. Unfortunately, we can't drag this thing down, which is really such a simple thing to add. What we want to do is we want to set the first leg to be on the start of the phase, and we want the second leg to be opposite that, so we need that to be in the middle of the phase. 0. And now if we look, hang on, our leg, oh, that's these guys, 1 and 2, sorry. It's 2 and 3. So we need 2 and 3. My fault. Remember, I used the spider's leg 1 as the arms, okay? So that was basically my mistake. Okay, now nothing's lining up to the mesh. Don't freak out. Let's just in fact hide that, because remember, we're doing animation right now. So now if we look, we can see that the two front legs, which are this and this, are in opposite phases of each other. Okay, so they walk like a human. And basically what we want is each pair of legs to walk like a human. And you can see that the two rear legs are still in phase. They're still on the same phase. So we just need to do the same thing back here. Whatever the rear leg is, okay, so whatever left leg is, we want to be the opposite. So left leg 2 is at the 0, we want left leg 3 to be at 0, and then we'll put this one to the end. Now it doesn't actually matter if you go to the start or the end, it's going to put it back in the same spot. So I'm jerking that back and forth, and you can see that these are in the same spot. So now we have a good walk cycle. Okay. Now the other thing is that these guys here, they lost their IK too, but that's good because we don't actually want IK. We actually do want to animate this with forward kinematics. And you'll notice that, like, I cannot actually, well, actually it did work, even though maybe it's not part of the motion layer, we'll see. But we will be able to animate these things separately. And at any moment that we want to go back to what we were doing, to the skinning, we can just hit this button and we go back to pose mode, and we're all good. So that is part 1 of creating the skeleton in CAT. We did use a few cheats. We had to hack a little bit here and there, but for the most part it is going to work out pretty well. And the nice thing about doing with the motion layers here is that we didn't have to manually do these, move these around and adjust the curves of up and down and all that, because they really do have like if you look, there's a lot of like very smooth curves here, and you know, you actually have to set this kind of stuff up yourself in the curve editor if you don't start with something like this. So that's why I chose to use it. Plus it does give us, you know, we can still totally animate it up and down, you know, we can rotate it left and right, and the legs are going to stick however we want. Alright, we still move the head around, and we can still, you know, have him strike out at you, you know, attack you like that or whatever, and we can still, you know, wave this up and down. We can make these go up and down. Let's make sure that we're on each pivot so those can go up and down, and we can still, you know, control all of this stuff. And the other thing about cat rigs is that it actually gives you layers here. So we have a cat motion layer. This is the procedurally driven walk cycle, and then we can add absolute layers which replace everything in the entire animation. So if I were to actually add this right now, you'll see that, like, I've just wiped out the animation, but if I were to auto key and say, oops, come here to about halfway, auto key that, go about halfway here, move him down, key that, move this. Now if we play, oh, well, let's go to animation mode. I was doing that, I'm such an idiot. I actually need to undo that because I did that in pose mode. very, 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 very bad. Let's unhide all here real quick. I did save the file, so I'm safe. Okay, it's okay. So I'll undo that. Sorry, I need to be in animation mode to make this work. So we'll just call this, say, like idle, right? And we can now do what I was doing originally without screwing it up. Come here, boom, down, up. And if we play it, so we have an idle. And if we want to export the walk cycle, we can just ignore the idle. Give us the idle. Alright? And we can have as many animations as we want. We can do attack, we can do a whole bunch of whatever. Okay? And the other thing that we can do is we can add a local layer. Okay? And we'll call this like head look. Okay? And we're going to ignore the idle animation, and we're going to use the walk cycle. Let's solo that really quick. Oh, make sure we're in play mode. I keep forgetting to do that. You can't forget to do that. Okay, so let's not solo it. We'll come here, and you can see that we still have our animation now, right? And I can say, let's throw some auto keys on this guy. Oops, I had the wrong bone selected. Okay, and now when we play the animation, he still runs, but he keeps turning his head, now he turns his head back and forth, should we want to do that. Okay, so a local layer adds on to it. In fact, I think I'm not entirely sure about what's going to happen if I screw with this guy. Yeah, so you can add animation to that too. So see how that leg goes out and back, out and back. All right. So we have all of those controls, and we can just dump these layers anytime we want. I'll keep the motion layer, but you can see it does go back. And we just name them. We'll have idle, we'll have attack, we'll have screech, we'll have sniff, we'll have threaten, panic. Whatever animations we actually end up creating for him for his behaviors, we can have them in this nice handy list right here, and we just got to activate them and then export, and we should be good to go. It does work out pretty well. I have used it in the past, mostly on like game jam stuff, but I have used it in the past, and it does work really, really, really well, and it actually is very organized in itself. And there's actually a lot of stuff you can do to help yourself over here. You can blend between IK and FK. You can do a bunch of stuff. So hopefully you guys found this first part interesting. Let's go back to pose mode, so unhide all, and you can see that we are still where we need to be. All the bones are correct, and so in the next part of this tutorial we're going to skin this to the character and then test motion and fix the skin weights. And just as a note, I am using 2016, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I am using 2016 extension 1, which is very recent, and that's given us a few skin weighting tools such as heat mapping and voxel mapping that hopefully make the next video take about 5 minutes, but obviously that's not going to happen, so we'll see what happens, and I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.